I hope everybody is able to hear me well. This is Camila and Crisanti. We continue our ASA training for Security Architect, day 2. I'm going to be starting and sharing the slides, and we're going to continue covering all security products. So let me share the screen. Right. Screen. Share. So hopefully you should be able to see my screen now. All right, let's dive in. If you have any questions or any comments, just put it on the chat. So today, continuing the security products, we're going to cover web application firewall. There are different rule sets there, so we want to make sure you're aware of it. We're going to cover the firewall rules builder that you already saw yesterday. So, and after we do bot management, rate limiting, and Spectrum. So, web application firewall. As all you aware, all of our features, including web application firewall and other security features and performance and reliability features, they all take effect literally within less than few seconds. Maximum it can take 30 seconds, but in reality, super fast. You're already convinced by that, seeing the demos and labs. Um, why it's important to be so quick? If you ask question, for example, hey, what's the difference with competition? Yeah, one of the things is that Cloudflare runs everywhere the same full stack of features and products, and we update all of them, all the changes you do, push the cache, roll out a new WAF rule, for example, or anything happening within like literally seconds. Why it's so important to be so fast and consistent? I'll give you an example. You, for example, giving rolling out a new application firewall rule specifically matched for your customer rules, and within few seconds, if you use Cloudflare, it's already propagated across all 200 data centers. So all users across the globe getting the same experience. With some of the competitors, it might take hours, if not sometimes during the day before they go and propagate across all of their network. And the worst part about it, once you realize if there is any mistake or typo in this rule, you need to roll it back extremely fast so that less people got affected. Again, in Cloudflare, you switch it on, it's just a matter of seconds. But with other providers, before rolling back, it's going to take another hours and so. So that's where one of the advantages using Cloudflare is that you're really consistent and fast. Even if you find a mistake, you still can roll it back within a second. So in the top firewall, we do have a web application firewall. So what is it about? It's actually based on checks of the HTTP headers and body, and it's searching for different signatures, anomalies. So basically what we cover in that thing, it will be always some SQL injections, it will be cross-site scripting, anything malicious that can be run like that. And we're using Nginx FL to scan every single request, and you can see it's extremely fast, less than a millisecond. So our firewall, web application firewall, is consists of three rule sets. One of them, as you're familiar already, is OWASP Mod Security Core rule set. Another one is the one that Cloudflare rule set that we built, and I will tell you later on why we actually decided to go with our own rule set of the rules, and custom firewall rule builder, which you're already familiar with from yesterday a little bit already. So let's move further. But main idea why people using WAF is because they want to make sure they secured their customers secured during doing any payment or personal data operations, and of course it's part of the PCI compliance, which is quite important for anyone who is running some payments or personal data things. So Cloudflare manage rules. So when you look at it, this is something that actually Cloudflare team done from where it came out. It's basically something that we looked at it and we understand that when you work with OWASP mode security, this is a specific group of people, a team that needs to be gathered several times a year in order to get a new vulnerabilities added patches into their OWASP mode security. But we know that internet is changing every day. There is always, almost every day, some vulnerabilities announced in one code, in one CMS, etc. So in order to be always on top of the game, Cloudflare decided to go with our own managed rule set rules that actually got updated very quickly. So we work very closely with Facebook, Google, Mozilla, other big influent providers with security things. So whenever there is any vulnerability, we know it first, even before it's announced. So usually what's happening, our firewall team will find that vulnerability, make a patch and push it immediately to that Cloudflare managed rules, so that even if you're running older version of the software that has this vulnerability with running Cloudflare managed rules, WAF, you already protected. And this is where we filling up the gap where an OWASP or any others, they still play a catch up game. Here we're already on top of the game. So that's probably the biggest differentiator why people use it. And we recommend usually to keep Cloudflare miscellaneous, Cloudflare special rules folders turned on. So, and you will see it quickly on the demo as well today. So as I mentioned, OWASP Mode Security, that's the one all of you are more or less familiar with and run it quite properly. It's got over hundreds and hundreds of the rules. The way it actually works, it always looks at the threat score. And with this threat score, it basically can do either block, challenge, or simulate. And you can apply it for the whole mode security rule sets that you have it there. Other things here to look at is that both Cloudflare rule sets and OWASP mode security rule set, this is something that usually turned on per domain. So this is something that if you need to switch it off for specific URL, so what you can do, or let's say you want a bypass API, for example, cause you will have to use page rules where you have to specify the specific URL and it will turn off the WAF for you, which means that basically it will turn off both Cloudflare rule sets and OWASP mode security rule set. So there is nothing like you need to only turn on that only one of them. So you actually see it on demo how you actually play with it. Okay, that's the one of the support articles. I'm happy to post it for you later on in the chat, but you'll also find it in the presentation once you receive it end of today. So within that, I want to get to the demo of the firewall. So hopefully you're able to see my screen. Let's have a look at it. So firewall, I'm gonna a little bit make it bigger, but not that much because there are too many elements here. I just want you to see that stuff. So where you're gonna find web application firewall under manage rule sets. Web application firewall by default is switched off. You need to switch it on. That's the first action you need to do. And after you decide which rule set you'd rather to work with, we always recommend to work either with one or another one. So I'm gonna scroll down and you will see there is a OWASP mode security core rule sets. That's the one actually that you all familiar with. You can see that's the one, the threat score that you're playing with, medium, high, low, and switching off. By default, it switch up to medium. Whenever you start using your web application firewall, you want to make sure you're running it in simulate mode, because that's where you see if there is any false positives or specific rule that making an issue when it shouldn't be, for example, and you want, for example, avoid it. So, and only after you're ready with it, you can switch to challenge. Usually it takes 1 to 2 weeks, depend on the customer, to run that in order to find out all that corner cases. Each of the packages contain some of the group of rules, as you can see here, which you can specifically go to each of them and switch that off. So in case if you see that session fixation is specifically creating an issue, for example, for that domain, you can explicitly switch that off. But again, it will be switched off for the whole domain. So that's the difference. And what else? You can also do the search. That's whenever you see in raw logs or anywhere that you need to find the rule, there is a search here that you can search it for. So after you can just switch it off. That's very important to find out. Okay, so right on top of it, you have Cloudflare rule sets. Here they are. We did a little bit different here logic. We combined the groups of rules based on content management system or the language that actually makes sense for you to use. So in your experience, if you use, for example, Cloudflare Joomla content management system, then in this case, you prefer to switch on a Joomla rules. There is also like content, WordPress, WHMCS, and many others, or PHP, Flash languages that you have it there. So what we recommend is use Cloudflare Specials by default on, because there's lots of them that make sense to turn it on. And you can see not all of the rules are by default, for example, using block or challenge. Some of them by default disabled, and that's actually done on purposely. So some people, and you will see some articles in internet that saying, hey, this and this was able to bypass Cloudflare rule sets or Cloudflare WAF. That's just because they didn't set it up on the correct way. When you want to make sure that you're working with Cloudflare Web Application Firewall, you understand what rules really relevant for your customer and which not. If we by default turn on all of the rules into the challenge mode, or default mode will be blocking or challenge, yeah, lots of systems, lots of customers will be announcing and will be complaining about false positives, because some of the roles correct and right for one of the customer, but maybe it's not the case for another one. That's why Cloudflare went with the procedure that we rather have that rules there in disabled mode, because we know for some customers it might be causing a false positive, so that the customer itself will turn it on. You will see some of the tests that will be run against Cloudflare WAF, and all they did in order to increase, for example, performance and security, they literally switched on all of the rules to make sure that they're all in the challenge or block mode. Yeah, you can do so, but in reality, when you work with the real customer, you need to understand that some rules can cause that false positives. That's why it's so important. Yes, Cloudflare has that different rules available for you. Some people can say it's bypassed, but it's just because they need to set up the default action to challenge and block if they want to make sure and secure it 100% for that test, for example, to run it. So don't get surprised if you see something like that and it will be written. It's just because they didn't tune their WAF fully properly for that type of exploits, for example. All right. So let's switch back to the following session, and I'll give back to you, Krisanti, to go over firewall rules.
All right. Thank you very much, Camila. So everyone can hear me clearly?
Yes.
All right. Yes, cool. Yeah. So just to add into what Camila said, just to give a summary. So if you have a customer conversation and they ask you, so why with Cloudflare WAF? So first of all, to configure the Cloudflare WAF and enabling it is very easy and user-friendly. So a lot of customers, they have a lot of appliances, security appliances, but they do not know how to set it up. And every time they need to do a reconfiguration, change management, they need to engage the vendor to change that, which is, it takes time, and then it's more complex. While for Cloudflare, you just go to the dashboard, change the configuration, make it in simulate mode or change to a challenge mode, and it will be automatically activated. So simplicity is of use. And the third one, if you meet the customer with, let's say, hardware appliances that prefers to do hardware, so there are solutions that with hardware, you need to every time upgrade the firmware, upgrade the policies, you need to do a maintenance to that appliances. While for Cloudflare WAF, we are doing virtual patching. What virtual patching means is customer does not need to worry. You will always get the latest and the latest rules from Cloudflare. So, for example, there are these 0-day vulnerabilities that Cloudflare discovered, or it happened in one of our customers, we learn about it, and we will update our WAF rules. For example, those with Cloudflare specials. So those are the one that is often being upgraded or modified. So again, these are the key differentiator that I would like you to remember as and when you have conversation with the customer. So let's continue with our, previously we have this question that is related to OWASP. Why OWASP rule set only comply to top 10 OWASP 2013 and why not OWASP 2017 on higher? This is a very, very good question. And yes, so the OWASP 2017 is actually upcoming. So in the near future, we will release the support for OWASP 2017 in our WAF. So it is already in progress. It is just haven't been deployed yet. Okay, so let me continue with firewall rules. So to complement the WAF, sometimes the customer also have their own applications and they would like to create their own rules. So in the past, in order to create their own rules to match their application, they need to reach out to our support, request them for creating this particular rules for their application that applies only to their zones. So instead of giving that, Cloudflare gives a flexibility to the customer to customize their own, which is using firewall rules. So for the firewall rules, is a set of capability for customer. It comes with a set of fields that are already available. However, there are additional features that when you purchase, you get it, you will get add-on fields available in your firewall rules. So this is related to add-on features available. For example, if you enable the bot management, there are additional fields which later we will explain. If you enable the body matching content, so whereby there are some customers that would like to see the body of the packet. So you can also enable that in the firewall rules when this capability is enabled. So if you see how to create the rules, it looks simple. So basically, when incoming requests match a certain field, so later on we will go to the dashboard to see what are the fields that you can create. Operator, it's like equals, not equals, less than, contains, and then the value, it can be regex. So you can put a wildcard, you can put the additional regex parameters that is also available in firewall rules developers documentation. So you can also apply and or depending on how detailed you want the rule is. And on top of that, Cloudflare firewall rules will change that into the expression preview. So this will be how the rule from GUI translated to the regex expression or the firewall rules expression. So after this, the next action will be for you to create either action. You want to block, challenge, JavaScript challenge, bypass, etc. Okay, moving on. Now, firewall rules also give capability to customers to create their own rules. And actually, if you are an advanced user of firewall rules, it can be very, very powerful. The reason is because there are some parameters that is not available if you are using GUI, but it is available if you take a look at the firewall rules document, and it only available in this command line. We call it command line. So if you use expression builder, then you can create even more detailed rules in comparison to the GUI. Okay, so that is the only difference. If you use expression editor, there are additional parameters that you can use. For example, if you want to define a certain header, certain request body, to match a certain request body, what will be the action? So you can do that only in the expression builder, but not in the GUI. And then the third thing that you need to remember when creating the firewall rules is rules order. So by default, rules will be read sequentially. So sequentially means it will start with 1. If it already hit the first rule, means that it will exit the firewall rules. It will not go through the next. There are a few exclusion. So for example, if you use the rule bypass, so with the bypass, if the bypass is allowed, it will still take a look at the next condition. So I would recommend you to read the documentation on the firewall rules on what are the certain conditions where the rules behavior will change. But in general, to avoid the confusion, firewall rules will be executed subsequently. So if it hits the first rule, then it will not go through the next one. So try to use the most specific one in the first rule. And then when you are creating a rules, you will see the button test rule. So what we do in the test rule is actually something like a staging or evaluation, which means that before you actually do the deployment of the rule, you can do the test to see if it hits a certain condition in your rule set, in your existing traffic, or what will be the response to the rule. Will it cause any impact to your application? However, to enable this, you need to have a constant traffic into your domain. So, because this test rule will be get against a sample of requests in the past 72 hours. So don't be surprised if later on you try to create a rule and then you try test rule and they will say there is not enough traffic. It's because you are using a demo domain and there is very little traffic on it. Yeah, so now let's go to the dashboard and we try out to write a firewall rules for those partners that have not ever tried to create firewall rules. For the partner who is already very familiar with the firewall rules, you can take a look at the firewall rules action and try a more advanced one using expression builder. So try something like block or challenge a certain request with a certain header. For example, the header is orange case, cache. If it has a header named orange case equals to something, then challenge the request. And then after that, you can review the event in the firewall events tab. And then you can compare how different to OWASP events. So if you want to take a look at the OWASP events, let me share my dashboard. Yeah, so if you create a firewall rules and then it hits, let's say, a certain action, be it log, simulate, or block or challenge, you will be able to see it here. And then I created a WAF event, so later on you can compare what is the difference between firewall rules. So if the event hit by firewall rules, or if the event is hit by WAF rules. So this one is the example of a WAF event. So if you want to take a look, you can go to greycloud.cf, go to firewall overviews, and then you can go down and take a look at the detailed events here. So with this, the assignment for now, I will give you about 5 minutes. Open your dashboard, you create a firewall rules, and then yeah, you can create, let's say, block something with the user agent, for example, something equals with Chrome. So you can create here, what is the name? So you can use your name, and then if the user agent, so where is the user agent? So if the user agent, let's say, contains, and then you can put something like maybe Chrome or others, and then you can put some other parameter as well if you like. Then you can choose an action. So the action can be allow, you can put JavaScript challenge or challenge if you want to have a capture challenge. Or if you want to try other conditions, feel free to do that. So the objective of this is for you to experience how to use and enable firewall rules. So you can use based on maybe IP address. If you know your IP address, that is the easiest. And then you can mix and match a different parameters. For example, if the country comes from, let's say, Singapore, plus the user agent equals to, let's say, curl, then what is the action? And then if you want to try the expression builder, in fact, what you can do is you can just, you can create a name and then click on edit expression and put the expression here directly. So where to find the expression builder? So you can go to developers.cloudflare.com, and then there is a section here for firewall rules. So you can go to the common use cases if you want to try out, let's say, challenge pet bots. So this will be something that we are going to do later. Require a specific cookies. So if the HTTP cookie contains something, if you have a valid cookies in your web servers, you can do this. If you want to know what are the fields available, you can go to this firewall rules language fields. So there are additional fields that you can also include in the expression builder. Okay. So let me take a look at the chat. Yeah, Camila already shared the language field. Yeah, this one magic firewall field. So apparently it's already, this is a new product that is part of Cloudflare 1. So apparently there is already have this information here when you want to do the firewall filtering. So these are the capability you can do with Magic Firewall. Yeah, this one, request header, is something that you need to do purely in the expression builder. So these are the parameters available for you to use. HTTP body, so I don't think this one is enabled in our demo site. Let me try. Let me see. Bypass. Oh yeah, I think yeah, this one is enabled. Okay, so anyone testing in your own firewall rules or in Grey Code demo account firewall rules? Any questions on creating the firewall rules so far? Or anyone have done this in their job, their role when you are building something for the customer? Any comment or feedback so far? No? Okay. So with this, let me continue with the presentation. Let me see, where are we now? Okay. Yesterday, Camilla explained about IP access rules. So now we learn about firewall rules. What is the difference between these two? I think Camilla did mention about this yesterday. So I want you to paste in the chat. What do you remember and what are the difference between firewall rules and IP access rules? So let me share with you. IP access rules can be found in here, tools. Yeah. While firewall rules is here. So anyone wants to try? What is the difference between firewall rules and IP access rules? Because IP access rules, you can configure whitelisting, allow, block, challenge for IP range, country, name, or ASN. With firewall rules, you can also do the same. You know, based on IP, country, ASN, or even more. Let's see. IP access rules, there are answer. IP access rules create exceptions for the actual firewall rules in place. In a way, this is correct because IP access rules is executed first before the firewall rules. So that is a first thing to remember, that before firewall rules gets executed, actually IP access rules is being reviewed first. So for example, if you create something like in IP access rule that you allow IP from, let's say, your own network or your own IP address, you can do, actually you can do a test, like what's my IP, you know your IP, you do, you configure in the IP access rules, allow this IP. And then in the firewall rules, you can create, let's say, based on either your IP or even your country. If the country comes from, let's say, Singapore, do a challenge. And then you can compare what is the behavior, which one takes place first. So this will be also interesting to try out. But not only that, there are other differences as well. Anyone else want to try? Thank you, Chef. Yep. Another great question from Pong. IP access rule is layer 3 and 4, while firewall rules can do application layer. Yep, that is also correct. So take note that IP access rule is only limited to layer 3 and 4. So in our classroom today, we have about 45 participants. How about the rest? Let's try. Okay, 45 including 2 of us. So one more, try. All right. So let me share with you the answer. So first, IP access rule is triggered first before firewall rule. So this is what Shep answered earlier. And then IP access rule can span across individual zones, all zones of a user, or all zones in organization. So it has a more span. And then the third one is what Pisipong just answered. Spectrum, which is our DDoS protection for layer 3 and 4, uses IP access rule to allow or bypass IP, ASN, and country. So by right, I should not write whitelist or blacklist, because in the firewall rules now, there is no more whitelist and blacklist. It is allow and block, yeah? Allow, block, or challenge. And I just learned yesterday that now in US, you cannot longer use whitelist and blacklist. So you can only do approve, deny, all, allow, or block. So it's pretty interesting. All right. And then just to review in the detailed security services, so in my diagram, we still use a blacklist or whitelist, but actually it should be, this is where IP access rule takes place, allow or block, and then after that will be firewall rules. Some use cases to share with you if you are managing the environment for the customer. So if you know that a certain web application only use, let's say, port 80 or 443, this one for HTTP and HTTPS, you can create firewall rules to only allow that particular port. So CFH server port. So that means that even at the Cloudflare side, we will only allow this server port. Another common firewall use case, so this is to give access only to those users with a specific cookie. So perhaps you have an admin page or the developer page that you want only a certain users that after login, they will get the cookie, say dev access, this is the name of the developers. So only these developers will be able to access that web application. So since firewall rules is executed sequentially, so they can create like first one, if the HTTP cookie contains 1, 2, 3, and the host equals to this host name in the header, then allow. And then if the rest, if doesn't fill this condition, then the second one will take place, which is the rest who try to access this host will be blocked. Of course, when building these rules, we advise you to work with your customer, because then to understand what is your customer requirement when configuring their security for each and one of their applications. Earlier in the firewall rules, you see about the API shield rule. So this one is not covered in today's lesson or this ASA lesson. It will be covered under upcoming Cloudflare Access Advanced course, because API shield rule is actually related to a mutual TLS that is available with Cloudflare Access. All right, with this, I will pass the screen back to Camila for bot management.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Krisanti. So that's a really exciting topic, guys. I want you to all get attention, because this is something that is really being super hot potato across our new customers and existing customers. So you already know a couple of information about it, but let's get around it more closer. So let me just very quickly share the screen so you're able to see it. Right. And let's go over it. Okay. So bot management, that's relatively one of the products that we launched several years ago, and been having such an extreme database and reports and analytics and being able to see so much what's happening in internet, helping us to do our job much better. And that's why we're seeing the biggest issue right now, what's happening. It's not just the attacks, but also bots abuse, content scraping, credit card scraping, yeah, and other things that's happening there. Is really important that the companies now think about bot management solution. So bot management is something that helps you to understand what type of traffic you have it. In reality, um, we have two types of traffic, human generated, and automated traffic. But there is a lot of automated traffic, which is good. Your API, your third parties, the other verified bots and scrappers that help you to do so. So it's good. But also, there is a quite a big portion of it that can be really malicious or something that can abusing you or attacking you. And this is where you need to make sure you have a deep understanding and knowledge how to recognize which automated traffic is good for you or bad. Because for some customers, this traffic can be good, but for some customer, it can be bad. So Cloudflare bot management solution is based on several ingredients that we put into the plates, but one major one is based on machine learning. So every single request that passes through Cloudflare is getting a bot score from 0 to 100. And if it's closer to 100, it means that the traffic is most likely is human originated. If it's close to 0, we're talking about automated traffic. So, in order to understand how it works and what we can do with it, we're using firewall rules that you're already familiar with. We do have a specific bot related or bot management field that available for you there. And you can see it's a verified bot. And verified bots, it's those that we actually don't want to touch, and you want to make sure that they keep coming, crawling your website, scanning, because it's SEO, it's Google engines, it's other engines that you want to keep in coming. They 100% automated. They certainly get the score 0 or 1, let's say, yeah, but we don't want to block them. So we want to make sure we do an exclusion. A bot JavaScript score, that's the one that actually you can inject a little JavaScript script into it. You will see where it's actually done in Cloudflare UI. And also serving the static resource. It means it's helping identifying a static resource to make sure that it cannot be abused or used and, for example, run a different code on top of it. So that's a helpful things there that help you to get through a bot management. Because one thing is identify the traffic, and another thing, so what are you going to do with it? How you want to manage that? So let's gonna look at it much more closer. So that's the key differentiators of why Cloudflare bot management is actually working pretty much very well. So it's obviously our big network intelligence. We don't want to add any latency, no matter how many products you use, security, performance, reliability. We want to make sure that there is no latency included into it. There is nothing like that needs to be processed, and it's easy to deploy, literally one hit button, or the firewall rule. It should be straightforward to do. And our machine learning is actually all the time already learning, even when you're not using bot management, because it's all get fed with the requests that passing through internet. And of course that it's all unified interface, the dashboard that help you to get all of the features and management within one place without switching between different providers, different UIs. As you might know, other competitors, they have different dashboards for different products, and it's quite confusing. Here you use one for everything. Right. So these are the key components that helping us to identify what bot score we are dealing with. So heuristics. In heuristics, this is something we looked at the user agent, the SSL handshake, fingerprints, everything that we should see if there is any patterns, if there is something that actually unusual that's happening at that point of things. And if it's happening, then automatically our system get the bot score 1. You can see it's written here. So and passing through. Next is machine learning model. This is something, if we didn't find anything through heuristics or behavioral analysis, it passed through to machine learning model, where we, based on the data what we have there, looking at the different headers, a sequence of the headers. Yeah, a cookie is being used, the weight, the all that information, like in the signature. Yeah, including historical data, we look and giving them machine learning model score from 2 to 99. So that's where it actually gets through. And here we actually setting a cookie, a special session cookie, you will see it, that actually helps us to get, okay, this is the score, we give it to them that is valid for the next 30 minutes of that session. And other part is behavioral analysis. This is where we'll look at all the traffic, for example, that been coming from the same IP address. So we're looking at the back and forth, what the weight of the bandwidth that been usually coming from that request. Is it normal to receive the same type of request, or maybe it's already have much more into it than that is highly unusual? So that's behavior type of things is actually getting also a bot score 1. So whenever you see bot score 1, it means that it's our heuristics or behavior analysis that got triggered. If none of them got triggered, it passing through machine learning and getting the um, bot score from machine learning piece. So I explained, and this is actually showing you exactly what's happening and what we look at on heuristics. So user agent, client, hello fingerprinting, HTTP2 fingerprinting, and request signature. And you can see it's less than 10 milliseconds. Yeah, I hope I correct it's milliseconds. So let's move forward. On machine learning
It's
and bot
microseconds. So it's
huh?
even faster, Camila.
Yeah, in microseconds.
Microseconds.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, because I was looking at it. So here is machine learning, where you can see that's the cookie. You will be able to see that it's actually setting up for that 30 minutes single session, and it expires. And basically, that's what we see that once we defined with it, with machine learning, to make sure that in case if something happens, it can be again reset again. On behavior analysis, or how we call it, bot activity detector. So that's another component that helping us to understand and get the right score based on behavior. And as I mentioned, we're looking back at the IP, what the traffic looked like before when we received from that IP. That's the sequence of headers. That's the way that we receive the bandwidth that usually come from it, the request size, everything there is looking at the behavior. So variables, so it's bot threat score, that you know that every single bot score, bot request is getting that score. It's a verified bots that we want to exclude. By the way, we always need to add new verified bots, because there are always like new like services that been added, new search engines, maybe some regionals. So that's an ongoing database where we add in more and more once we discovered more of them. And serve static resource. So that's like I mentioned. So basically what it does, it's want to make sure that whatever extension of the file, that's the one that actually going to be served. So bot management is also, like all other our products, has its own analytics. We will see it in the portal and also available in logs. There are two fields that you will see in the Cloudflare Enterprise Raw logs: bot score field 1 to 99 and bot core SRC, which is a source. You can see if it's something was heuristic, machine learning, behavior, verified bot, or let's say didn't go through anything, there wasn't any data, for example, it's just like not computed. That also possible. You will see that. It's very important that you can work with it. You can create the firewall rules based off the logs, for example, set up the script that, for example, immediately create that firewall rule. You can pull it from log pool or from log push. So both of them available, including the dashboards for bot management as well. This is the sample of the bot event. So if you remember in the firewall rules tab, we have that firewall log or firewall like a journal where you can go and look at the each request. So you can see it's always contains that unique ray ID or unique ID. You can see the rule that got triggered. So as you can see, we have that rule IDs usually. It's also available in logs. You can see the rule IDs, the rule name, and the expression that we put that actually got triggered in order to match it. So as you can see, with Crisanti, you already look on different parameters. We're going to look at the fields that are available for bot management. Here, basically, it says Cloudflare bot management score less than 30 and not bot management static resources and not bot management verified bots. So we excluding static resources and we excluding all verified bots, then trigger challenge from WAF or from firewall rules. So you can see that request got get bot score 1 and bot source got defined by heuristics. On the left side, you can see that somebody was trying to get into the that pass adminer PHP with this user agent. Plus, you can see the IP address from where it's coming. It certainly doesn't look like a home or any other place that can be done by human, but DigitalOcean. So, and DigitalOcean is a provider for different virtual machines like any others. So you understand that there certainly was about automated traffic. So that's why it got triggered. Right. Writing a bot management rule, you're going to use that three fields. So you're already familiar with the UI, and all you will need to look is the scroll down the fields list and you will find verify bot, bot thread score, and serve static resource. That's the one we're going to look at. Depending on different use cases, you can write different bot management rules, but basically Crisanti already showed you before the use cases that you can actually apply to it. So again, that is showing you that one of the generic bot management rules, it all starts from one bot management rule that look like most likely like that. And here is the question, why the threshold should be less than 30? Well, generically, what we can see that most of the automated traffic, they all see it on the bot scores requests that we've seen less than 30. And sometimes if you want to make it a little bit more loose, you can do it less than 10, less than 20 as well. But we can see that it's a really high ratio of the automated traffic really sits within that 0 and 30. That's why we usually start with that rule. We select a specific path, in this case is vp-login.php, and we exclude verified bots. Whenever you need to work more on it, you want to work with other passes or with other ingredients, you can still do that too. But basically what we need to do whenever we have a POC running on bot management or running a bot management thing, both teams, customer team and Cloudflare and partners team, we all looking at the traffic. At that moment when we're looking at the traffic, we set, for example, that rule into simulate mode. We're looking what traffic we actually triggering. And in some cases, we see some providers that fallen into it. It's certainly automated traffic, but it's a good automated traffic. In this case, we need to catch them out from it and add them as an exception, either here, either the user agent, either the IPs that they come in from, all the things you can add it here and make sure, hey, this is good automated traffic. So we excluding them from it. And within 1-2 weeks of running that POC, you are trying to pull out that good automated traffic for it, so that once you switch that rule into the action challenge or block, you actually no longer need to worry about that third party partners that you're working with or third party content that you want to make sure that it's passing through. All right, before we go to other part, let me finally share the screen. I hope you're all able to see it. So let's have a look where you find that bot management. By default, bot management is not switched on. It needs to be enabled, and it's only available for enterprise customers. So if you want to work with the firewall rules and use that bot management fields, it's only for enterprise customers who has bot management bot or POC running with it. Otherwise, they don't have it available for them. Another thing is there is a one button that's available under the tools, and it's called bot management here that you can see. And you need to click on it to go into configure it. So there is a JavaScript detection that you might want or you might not want to switch it on. By default, it's switched off. But this is another, a false component ingredient where you could actually use an invisible, very lightweight JavaScript detection for improving bot management thing. So we recommend to turn it on and look at what's happening with it, if it's really improving it, to keep it on. But if for some reason it interferes with your data or something, you can switch it off. So that's another ingredient that we recommend you to switch on. So it just switch on, it's just added there, but the rest doesn't change. The rest is all going through firewall rules. So let's just want to make sure that you're familiar. If I go to our favorite place, developerscloudflare.com, by the way, you have this night schema and white schema to work with. So I'm on the firewall rules and I have a common use cases. Yeah. So here you can find how to write that different rules that actually make sense for you. Challenge bad bots. Yeah. So this is where you can find the generic rule that we're coming with. Yeah. And we can easily go and create it in our bot management rule. I encourage you, if you're in front of your Cloudflare UI, you can do that. So I need to go to firewall rules and create a firewall rule. I'm gonna edit one because I already have one. So, and basically I selected use expression builder where I've been using that bot management score less than 30, HTTP request URI pass slash VP dash login PHP, and it's not verified bots. But if you do it in the normal, so basically that's the one you're actually gonna use the fields. So first of all, you wanna make sure that uh, you want to exclude verified bots. So this is how you do. And you want, for example, exclude the serve static resource, for example. And you want to make sure that, for example, the bot score, that's where we're going to find it, the bot score equals, for example, you're doing it less than that specific 30 or 40. So, and you can see, and that's the expression builder that you have it here created for you. And of course, you need to define for which URL you'd like to have it, if it's for the full host name or for that specific part of it, URI or URI path that you like to have it here. And it's very important, guys, to understand when you're working with bot management, yeah, many customers, they have problem with bot management, yeah, bot issues only for specific page or specific pages or parts of their sites. So that's why it's very important, if you want to play with it, you do it for specific pages. Like, for example, a biggest example is like when you have like a pricing, maybe it's a somebody who's selling airplane tickets or train tickets, etc., and somebody trying to scrape their pricing. So you want to make sure you're doing it on the pricing page, on pricing requests. If somebody's selling e-commerce things and products, the one that top like sneakers, yeah, the one that exclusive limited edition. So you want to implement it on that part. So you don't need to do it on the whole website, but you want to do it as granular as possible for the specific section that actually suffering from it. And many times when we come in and working with customers on POC, on bot management, the biggest shock that customers getting is how much of the traffic is ratio of the human versus that bot traffic or bad bot traffic. On some pages, it gets to 30%, 40%, 50, 60 even percent of the whole traffic is, for example, bots traffic, malicious bots traffic. So imagine that's the CPU usage, all the resources they using it for something that is abusing you. Nothing. You could save so much more on it. And in this case, bot management is really a very key solution to help our customers to identify that bad traffic and limit the access for them. So, and here is also another thing. As you can see in firewall rules, you can select what you'd like to do with that bot traffic. Yeah, you can log it, you can JavaScript challenge, capture challenge, or block it. So I always recommend, if you have like API traffic or mobile traffic that using that API, yeah, you want to make sure you're exclude that type of API traffic from being like a blocked or challenged. Yeah. But if you're sure that you have like lots of that traffic that needs help, JavaScript challenge obviously not going to help here. Yeah, it's just not going to do it there. So that's why you ask always customers, hey, what's the ratio? Do you have mobile app? Does it based on API? What is your API links? Can you identify them? So once you know the ratio of human traffic, API traffic, that mobile app and everything, it helps you create much more sufficient bot management solution, because sometimes just having that actions is not enough. Sometimes you might want to use a custom logic, which you can create with workers, and create, for example, if bot score less than 30, and this is the URL, and exclude that things, because these parameters that we've seen in the rules, bot score source, verified bots, that's all also available in workers in JavaScript environment, where you basically can create a different scenario. You can, for example, bots that abusing and trying to steal the pricing or buy something, you can send them to the fake page. So if bots score less than 30, send them to the fake page with the fake pricing or fake products. Let them both be satisfied, but at the same time, they won't harm you because you send them to the fake page. Or you can punish the bots and you can get the waiting time 1,000 seconds or etc. So you can create a really very creative solutions to help your customers to fight that type of bots. Okay, within that, I think I'm gonna pause it here and stop sharing and pass it to you, Krisanti.
Thank you, Camila. So before we start with the next section, I have a quiz to launch to all the participants. So these are the polling that I am launching, and all of you should be able to see in the screen. So the question is, all bots are bad. Is it true or is it false? So based on Camila's explanation, what do you think? So Camila explained about bots are the automated traffic, and then why we use bot management, because there are automated traffic that is actually disrupting the business of our customers. So is all bots are really bad, or is there actually good bots? Yeah, so I will end polling now because it's about 77% of the participants have answered. And most of the participants answered correctly. Not all bots are bad, because there are good bots as well. For example, bots that are in effect of the SEO ranking, or SEO ranking is how popular a website is, whether when you go to the search engine, whether it can go into the first page of the search engine or not. Other bots, let's say like a chat bot or the support, when you log into the iBanking and then there are a bot that is answering your request, that is also considered a good bot. So not all bots are bad. All right, this is good. And also on top of that, let me share my screen. So earlier, Camila shared about the JavaScript page with the bot management. So this is a new solution that we introduced, which Cloudflare inject a small lightweight JavaScript to make the bot detection more accurate. So if you enable the JavaScript in your web page, what you will see is there is a small JavaScript here called api.js. So this JavaScript actually comes from bot management product. So the request URL is this one, BM, and then this one is some parameters that JavaScript bot actually use. Okay, so yeah, just for your information, so this is where you can see the JavaScript part of bot management actually take place. All right, so let's move on to rate limiting. Anyone familiar with rate limiting already? Or maybe those who never heard or doesn't know what is rate limiting, you can type 1 in the chat. Anyone never heard about rate limiting? Because if everyone already familiar with it, then we can make it faster or even skip this section. Let me check. There is one response. 1. Oh, 1 means not familiar, not familiar. Oh, okay. Yes. So let's take a look at what rate limiting is. Rate limiting. So rate limiting is an add-on feature. So it does not come with enterprise plan. So it has to be a separate module, just like bot management. So usually rate limiting is used to cover layer 7 volumetric attack mitigation. So if it tries to attack your website with so many requests, you can use rate limiting to help against that as well. Or you can also give to limit how many requests can access your web application, because Cloudflare DDoS protection can range like very wide. Maybe your web application is not so powerful. So even when Cloudflare does not determine that it is a DDoS attack, but it can just a slightly more traffic to your web application, it can bring your application down. So you can use rate limiting to limit how many access from the same IP source address can access your account. Take note that once you enable, applies to all zones in an account. So in our demo account, be careful. Once you apply, then it can apply to all zones in an account unless you specify then what is the URL HTTP that applies to that rate limiting rule. So what happens when rate limiting is being enabled? Each POP or Cloudflare data center will keep account on HTTPS requests received from a single IP over a time period. So depending on the rules that you created, whether it is 1 minute, 10 minutes, 1 hour. And if it triggers the rate limiting, you will see HTTP error 429 or error 1015 error page, or you can also customize in the response. For example, you create a text or JSON if the threshold is exceeded. Rate limiting also support for clients behind a net feature, because sometimes organizations that when the clients come from the same, let's say public Wi-Fi or organization that from intranet, they might share the same IP source. So you do not want to block this type of public IP address. So with that, this is only available for a browser-based or desktop-based, because when there is a net feature enabled, actually Cloudflare creates or put in a cookie in the browser session. So this is how Cloudflare can differentiate when it comes from the same IP, whether it comes from the same browser or not, by the unique cookies. So take note that net feature will not be available if the request comes from API or mobile apps. So measures only request to origin. So if the request comes and all the content are being cached by Cloudflare, it will not get effect. URL patterns can include wildcards, but not query string. And then specific verbs or words or response code can be configured as well in the advanced mode in the rate limiting. And then if you want to bypass a specific URL, there are rules, advanced rules that you can configure as well. So the difference between rate limiting with firewall rules are rate limiting rules is not sequential. Only those with the most aggressive means that the most detailed rules. Basically, whichever that hit first, then it will apply the policy. So this is the example from a browser as well as the command line, if you are using, let's say, like curl. So the concept itself is simple, giving a threshold on the request to your origin. Let's go to your Cloudflare account, go to the firewall tools, and then click protect your login, or maybe if since the demo page does not have login page, you can go to your main web and then click rate limiting. And then you can try to create a rule names, and then maybe for the how many times you can put, let's say 2 or 3 to make it small so that you can easily replicate or simulate the rate limiting threshold. So there is a question. When we use Spectrum to proxy TCP traffic, the origin server will only see Cloudflare IP connect to it. Would you please suggest if we need to restrict some IP address to some applications? Not all applications on Spectrum.
Well, I think let's cover it when we have a Spectrum, because we're going to have a section of Spectrum where we can have a look at it.
All right, that's a good one. So I will click answer live. Let's cover this during a Spectrum section. Okay. All right. So with this, let me go back to the dashboard and have you run through the step-by-step of configuring. Where is my dashboard? Yeah. So the gray cloud. So Spectrum can be found in, sorry, not Spectrum. Rate limiting can be found in firewall, and then tools, then go down. So, oh, somebody already creates the rule. So let's take a look. Let's say this one, protect my login. So if the traffic match this URL, www.angfe.graycloud.cf, if the same IP address exceeds 5 times requests per 5 minutes, all right. But the method, oh, interesting. So Angfe create based on a certain method. So if it's post, meaning you want to try to create write something, and then the cache status is not equal to hit, means that it's not being cached, go to origin, then block for 15 minutes. Yeah, so this is based on this URL. So this is post. Let's take a look at another one, info.graycloud.cf. So it's a simple one. If HTTPS goes to info.graycloud.cf from the same IP address, exit 3 per 1 minute. Yep. the method is get. So usually when you go to the browser, you just read the content. It is a get activity. If you try to write, means you input something, like maybe there is a form and then you try to write input. So this is a post. And then, so you want to apply rate limit to cache assets as well, okay. Support users behind the net, block for 1 minute, all right. And then for this, you create a response type custom text block by rule limit, all right. Yeah, so can I access vivo.record.cf? Or maybe it is not. I think if, yeah, for this one, yeah, okay, there is no, is there anything in the DNS? Yeah, important is the URL has to be in the DNS so that you can connect to it. So yeah, there is no info, so there is no destination. But you know how the configuration looks like. Now let me go through the next question. Oh, before that there is a question here, Q&A. Oh no, this one already being discussed. I have a question for everyone. Seems like creating a rate limiting is pretty straightforward, so you know the rules and what to fill in. But a lot of customers will ask you when you recommend this, how do you know how many number of requests to configure when you want to create a rate limiting policy? Anyone wants to try to answer? You can raise your hand and then I will allow you to speak if it is easier, or you can type in the chat. Yes, good answer. Estimate from the stat on overview page. You can do that, correct. So actually there are many ways to do it. So one of it definitely is we have analytics or the stats here. Yes, correct. To see how many requests, because we only base on the request. However, for this request, it is not from the same IP address, right? So it can be very, very broad. And this one is total request for the whole domain itself. Let's say you have a rate limiting for, let's say, your login page or a certain URL in the domain. How would you suggest to your customer to get a better feel on what is the number you need to put in? Yeah, we have another answer, depending on the number of hits on the page. Yes, that is correct. Then the customer will ask, yes, but how do I know that number? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? How can I know how many requests for, let's say, my login page? Query by record type. Yeah. So the answer is what our SE normally recommend to the customer is that when you create rate limiting rules, start with simulate first. So let's say you start with one certain number. Let's say you want to put 100, because first of all, remember that rate limiting is only taking a look based on the same IP address. So when it says request, it does not related to request of unique IP address. Yes, so Adul Chai answer correctly. It can be using firewall rules, but I would recommend you to use the rate limiting itself. So you create the rules that you want. For example, like this one, protect your login, but you do not know, right? What is the how much, how many? So you can change the. Let me. Okay, I think because this one is configured in, what's my user? Maybe this one. Yeah. So you change this to simulate. So with the simulate, you will be able to get the rate. So where to get the rate from, rate limiting? You can get it in, will you get in overview? Let's take a look. No, info. I think it's in analytics. Security. So, okay, yeah, here. So you should see the rate limiting in here if there are any matching requests. So if there is a matching request, it will be shown here like what is the number, and then you can adjust accordingly based on this. So the answer is create a rate limiting policy with some number in simulate mode, and then adjust accordingly based on the monitored result. Allow 10 to 30% buffer to accommodate in case there are certain spike in the web application, because of course you need to accommodate the range. So the rate limiting has to be higher than the spike that you are expecting. And you need to adjust, again, important is according to your server capacity. So it is good to understand from the customer what type of number of requests that they experienced before, if they know what is the limit of their servers. All right, with this, I will hand over to Camilla to cover a Spectrum.
Yeah, thank you, Krisanti. There is a question actually. It can be related to also to rate limiting or to others.
Yes.
From the simulation mode, what is the recommended staging days for the rate limiting to be as effective as it should be?
This is a very good question. So this is something that you need to discuss with your customer, because different web applications have a different trends. So your customer should be the only one that can explain to you what is the trends that they can expect. Maybe they know that every month, maybe beginning of the month, they will get marketing promo. So they expect more traffic there. So you need to make sure that your limiting simulation period cover the most highest time in the marketing, in the web application traffic. And even if previously, let's say, because of the promo, the website goes down because cannot handle the request, then it would be good to get some numbers from there. Otherwise, then you can, during the event itself, then you can see, monitor, and adjust accordingly. Hope that answered your question.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Krisanti. I will take over here. So let's do this. And let's dive into following section. Share the screen. Share. And by the way, guys, just going back to the to the firewall events and rate limiting here, if you can notice, it's just an addition. Right now, when you're creating the rule, you don't have an option to combine it. For example, hey, it's for that user agent or for that cookie or etc. So in reality, you're missing a couple of more components, because like like I had some customers who is asking, can I do rate limiting not just by IP, but also include a user agent into it? And that's an absolutely great question. So what I wanted to give you a heads up that in our roadmap for next quarter or this quarter is to have make sure that when you're using rate limiting, you can do not just based on IP and that parameters that you can see, but other parameters and fields as well. So stay tuned, it's coming as well. So that's something you later or sooner will get that type of questions, how you can combine it not just with other, but also other fields. And yes, it's coming and going to be supported very soon. Right. So now let's go to Spectrum. Spectrum. It's actually a really cool, nifty product that came out of need, where our customers say, "Hey guys, you great for HTTP, HTTPS traffic. We're loving you for it. But I have customers who run in UDP traffic. They have problems with it. They have like attacks keep happening. They need optimization of this traffic, or SSH or RDP or any others that even if it's HTTP, HTTPS, but it's running not on the standard ports, not default ports, yeah, like 80, 443 and a couple of others. What we're going to do with it? We want to protect them as well. And this where Spectrum was born. So basically, anything that's running on any others than 80, 443 and standard ports that you know that can be run for HTTP, HTTPS traffic, you can now protect, and not just protect, but also improve performance of such traffic. So as you can see, you can define if it's a generic TCP or if it's specifically UDP traffic. Is it HTTP, HTTPS that's running on other ports, Minecraft, SSH, and RDP? So what it's going to use as a protection, it's using level 4 IP firewall and DDoS of level 4. So you have to understand that all this web application firewall that's related for level 7. Here in Spectrum, we're working with level 4 rules. So IP firewall rules, where you have actually IP whitelisted countries. All the things is falling under this level 4. So how customers can use Spectrum, we're going to look now at the real live demo, and also if we can have support of proxy protocol or not. Yes, we do have, and what it is, we will also going to go and look at out what it is. So this is the interface, but the best part of it, I'd rather take you live to see what the availability right now, you have it there. So where we find Spectrum? Spectrum has its own tab. You can see it here. So this is where we need to click on it. And if you remember, yesterday we had a very good question. Hey, if I need to do a specific IP rules just for the Spectrum app, how can I do that? So, and if you might remember my answer or not, but in this case, if you really need to restrict the access or play with the IP firewall rules just for your Spectrum apps, in this case, we recommend to take that host name where it's actually hosted your no, the app that using different ports, and add it as a separate site. Basically, you add subdomain for that Spectrum app as a separate, and you will see it along other domains available for you here. And then you will use firewall IP rules that will be applied just for that specific subdomain. So let's have a look what's happening here. I have a couple of apps running here, and I'll give you on my example with Splunk. Uh, Splunk is this BI or intelligence tool provider that I actually installed on one of my AWS Elastic 2 servers, where I actually didn't configure anything. I just install it. And now I'm thinking, how can I make it sure that all my colleagues and myself able to seamlessly access it just with the simple host name that they will remember, splunk.cf-analytic.com, without remembering the origin and the port they need to connect to. So Spectrum is actually helped me here. So let's have a look what's happened with it. So originally, how would I access it? I would go to this IP address with the port 8000. So what I did with Spectrum is that I selected, okay, I am actually using HTTP traffic, not just the others. I have that domain that I'd like to use it for that type of access. I want support of IPv4, IPv6. My edge port to connect, if somebody connects over HTTP, is 80. But in the origin, that's the IP they need to reach out to origin, and this is the port 8000 they're going to connect to on the origin. I don't need the do termination, for example. If I want, I can switch on Argo Smart Routing and other couple of tools. But right now, that's the rule. I did it for port 80, and exactly the same rule I did for port 443. So basically, if I go now to this splunk.cf-analytics.com, it will show up with my Splunk server, which is fantastic. And I didn't have to do any config files update and host names update on the server itself, which is fantastic. So when we're talking about other applications, you following the same thing. But if you use UDP, you rather select UDP here. If you use SSH, RDP, Minecraft, that's the one you need to select it here. If you have subdomain, if you don't have it, it's up to you. So you need to make sure you provide the edge port it's connecting to, and the origin IP, and the port as you've seen with my Splunk server. On top of it, you can also run it as a load balancer. This is something that you can find it in developers if you open Spectrum. If your customers are interested in running TCP load balancer, they need to use Cloudflare load balancer together with Spectrum. This is where you're going to provide your load balancer that you created with Cloudflare. So that's for your information, that you also can do that with Spectrum. So there is a couple of more things that you can do here. And one of them that we purposely missed is the proxy protocols. What's that? So for some applications, you or your origin need to know the true origin IP address, client IP address, and the port it's connecting to. Because by default, when you're using Cloudflare, including Spectrum, all the requests coming from Cloudflare IPs. So in this case, if you must have included your client IP and the port it's connected to, you won't go with one of that protocols. Either you do with the simple proxy protocol or proxy protocol version 2, depending on what your origin supports. So in this case, it's going to be included into that request that you're going to go through. So it's really that simple. You can create it very simple how to use it. You can play and practice it with SSH or any others that will make it life much easier for you to protect that type of applications. By the way, just want to quickly tell you that Spectrum, we do have logs for Spectrum as well. So in the UI, you can see Spectrum Analytics, and you also can get, it's under logs, a specific Spectrum events. If you might remember, we have a HTTP request, we have a firewall events, and Spectrum is also available there. So that's the information you will get to see in the raw logs when you use in Spectrum events, which is fantastic as well. So you can work with it. Right, so within that, I'm moving to more other slide where we can see a lab for you to go and practice it with it and use it for your own app. So basically, just click on the Spectrum app and click on the button Create an Application. And you can select, for example, TCP, and you can try configuring the domain on the and all the port and HTLS and etc. settings that you've seen right now. For example, for SSH, port server 222. So how you'd like to access and connect to origin, you can also look at it. Well, you don't have a load balancing, I assume right now yet created, so just use the origin IP, and you can decide if you want to keep it off. Like I think if you're using Chrysanthemum things, you just keep it off and click add and try to see if you're able to reach out to it. So going back,
Camila, there
yes.
are a few questions actually.
Yeah.
So first is, can Spectrum perform port address translation?
Port address translation.
I think that is what Spectrum does, right? Translate the port from the edge to the origin.
Exactly. So just give me a second. If I go back to this, so basically when you're creating it, the request coming from one port, and you can actually keep the same port if the translation coming from the same port that your origin is, you can do so too. So it really depends how your app is actually created and what port is your edge port you'd like to connect to. If it's exactly the same as here, you can keep it. Otherwise, that's what Cloudflare will does. We translate all traffic that enter in port 80 all the way to the origin to the port 8000.
Yeah. And then another question, can Cloudflare do X forwarding? I think this is the X forwarder header, I believe, which we do have.
So yeah,
X
with this,
forwarded for.
yeah. So that's the one that will be included if you select the proxy option. So then in this case, there will be included that information, proxy protocol version 1 or proxy protocol version 2, in order to include that the true IP of the client, including the port as well they've been connected to, in case if there is a difference between edge port and the origin port.
Yeah, correct. And I think this also brings us to the previous question by Adulchai. When we use Spectrum to proxy traffic, the origin server will only see Cloudflare IP connect to it. So perhaps there is another follow-up question to it, as in how do the application sees the real IP address? So instead of the Cloudflare IP. So Camila just answers, you need to use proxy protocol. So the application itself has to support proxy protocol, right, Camila?
Exactly.
So that you will be able to get the true IP header.
Yeah. And of course, don't forget that whenever you work with Cloudflare, either you're using Spectrum, either you're using any other product, make sure you have all Cloudflare IPs whitelisted, so that on your firewall, origin firewall, you always have cloudflare.com/IPs, always whitelisted them to make sure that you allowed accept all the things, so there is no any issues.
Yeah. And rest assured that all this IP address that is given here is Cloudflare own IP address, which means that if the IP comes from this range, it definitely comes from Cloudflare and it does not come from other people. For example, Cloudflare customers or the customers that is using Cloudflare. It will come from Cloudflare server. Because we have customers who ask, so what if the attacker also using Cloudflare and try to attack my origin? So if attacker is also using Cloudflare, the source IP address or the IP source will definitely come from internet, their own IP address. They will not get from this IP address, and it will be stopped or analyzed or blocked by Cloudflare before it reaches your origin. So another one, another question, with Spectrum BYOIP, bring your own IP, can we fix a static IP that Cloudflare use to connect to origin server?
It's a good question. We do have a servers where we provide you with a Cloudflare static IP. However, it's something that add on to existing features. This is something that obviously needs to be managed and agreed with CSM to make sure that you actually want that type of feature. It's possible, but it also depends on what service you're running. I understand with bring your own IP, where you're going with these things too. And yes, it's something that should be doable, but needs to be discussed with the CSM in order to make it happen.
Yeah. So I also want to add on to that. So if the customer use this solution, bring your own IP, it means that customer buy their own IP space. So for example, my IP space is 100.1.1.1 is owned by the customer, and Cloudflare will advertise this IP on behalf of the customer. So what it means is that this IP will be the IP that you advertise from Cloudflare. So your origin will be a different IP.
Yes, yes. I think some of you might not familiar with that term. So I'm gonna paste the link so you can see what it means. Bring your own IP when you want to use it with Cloudflare.
Yeah. So remember that with a concept of Cloudflare as a reverse proxy, Cloudflare will stand in front of your origin application. Origin application means that Cloudflare will be at the front, and then your origin is at the back. So if the server also have the same IP as what customer advertise, then if it goes back to, I think then it has to be somewhat like a magic transit solution. It is not a BYO IP solution. That is what I understand.
Yeah, well, just give you an idea. So bring your own IPs. You always have two different sets of IPs, minimum /22. Yeah, where Cloudflare advertises these IPs and your customers connect to us through these IPs. And on their own origins, of course, they have another set of IPs that they're running that not aware of, but Cloudflare aware them how to connect to you. So that's when you're using, and bring your own IP is one of the customers verticals is, for example, gambling customers. Yeah, they have a customers who don't want to change IPs to Cloudflare, for example, or they need to have like hard coded some of the values of it. That's why they rather prefer to have their own, stick with it, and they rather move that IPs on Cloudflare. And maybe it's also other reason is that they can be flexible. If they want to change provider and they have hard-coded IPs, they can do so too. Bring your own IP is making them life just easier, that they don't need to update their IPs for the customers. All right. So
Okay.
yeah, just moving forward, I hope you guys had the option to play with the Spectrum app. If not, or you have any questions, just let us know. But it's quite straightforward. So we have a takeaways. We went through the web application firewall. So you're now familiar that we have a Cloudflare managed rule sets. We have a standard OWASP mode rule sets, and we have custom firewall rule sets. This is where you do the custom logic when you need it. IP access, that's where you have different IP access rules. Usually it's a level 4 rules where you whitelist, blacklist, countries, IP ranges, AS numbers, based on the challenge or lock or bypass or whitelist. And we now have rate limiting that you are familiar now with, and Chrysanthi showed you how it works with also Spectrum. Spectrum is missing here. But within that, I pass the word to Chrysanthi to go over summary.
All right. Thank you, Camila. So, yeah, we still have about 2 sections left, and I will touch base quickly on this just to recap what we have talked about for our, let me share my screen. I haven't shared my screen yet. What we have talked about in these 2 days. So to recap that we already covered most of Cloudflare Security's portfolio, starting with the DNSSEC, and then WAF, firewall rules, DDoS protection yesterday, rate limiting, bot management, as well as Spectrum. Magic Transit will be covered under online course. Cloudflare access and gateway, it will be a separate course in the Cloudflare University. And just take note, for all the solutions in the right, it is all for HTTP and HTTPS traffic, while the solutions related to Spectrum will be for TCP, UDP, HTTP, and HTTPS that is running on custom port or non-standard port. Yeah. And let me skip the knowledge check. Let me go to a more interesting portion. So let me see. Okay, the chat is cleared out. All right. So Cloudflare logs. Last week in the ACE, we also covered Cloudflare logs, and Camilla did mention about Cloudflare logs earlier. So what's left to share? So what I want to do now with the team is to help you to run API while fetching Cloudflare log. So first of all, when you want to enable log pool is a function where you want to pull the logs to your data center instead of doing push to the cloud storage. You need to enable the retention. And to enable the retention or even downloading the log can only be done using API. So later on, we will go through together on how to collect the logs using API. So at the same time, teach you how to use API if you have never used it before. So this is the format of the log if you have never seen it. So our format is in the form of JSON text. So you will see like different types of fields. So Camilla did run through with you. So what are the possible fields? There are really a lot of fields information that you can get from the Cloudflare log. So that's why sometimes we filter based on information that we need. So client IP, client request host. So what is the targeted host that it's trying to reach to? Request method. So it tries to get means that it tries to read the content, the detailed URI. So it tries to go to this particular assets and timestamp when the request being served, response byte, the content byte, response status. So this is the HTTP status code, start timestamp, and the array ID. So moving on, this is something new. Previously, I have this request coming from Australia, whereby Australia government is very concerned when with the process of how Cloudflare are collecting logs. So before, how Cloudflare collecting logs is from each and one of our 200 colo, Cloudflare will send all the logs inside analytics to our core data center, which resides in US. And then core data center will be the one that is doing the aggregation. And after the data is being aggregated, then this is where the customer will download the logs through the API. But what is coming is instead of sending all the data to US, you can actually do edge log delivery, which means that you need to do a log push, and all the data that is coming from different colo will go directly to your cloud storage bucket. So with this, then the client can be rest assured that it does not go to another country. The data comes from the Cloudflare Edge data center directly to their colo. So for their data privacy. So, but then just need to note that analytics data, which is 1% of the sample, will still be going to US. And you can also enable IP truncation. Why we still need it? Because sometimes when you log a call, we need to get the information, the logs, the data, then this is where we need these sample logs. IP truncation, so what it is? Sometimes customer doesn't want Cloudflare to know what are the IP that they are pointing to, or who are the clients. So the analytics and logs won't contain the personal data or IP of the client. So with IP truncation being enabled, when the data is being sent out to Cloudflare data center, it will hide the last subnet, the last digit of the IP. So this last section will change to zeros. So there are a flag or a activation flag to enable when you want to activate this IP truncation. So how does that work between IP truncation and edge lock delivery. So with this, then Cloudflare will be able to send all the full unredacted log to everywhere that customer wants. For example, you want to send it in data center in Germany and always keep the personal data within Europe. However, the data that needs to be collected or sampled to Cloudflare data center will still be sent to US, but with truncated IP, so that Cloudflare will not know what is the real IP address of the source. All right. And moving on, let's do the lab. So I would like everyone to try out. So how to collect or how to run API with Cloudflare. So perhaps some of our participants are very experienced. You already know how to use or run API with Cloudflare. So the next thing for you will be, instead of using XAuth email and XAuth key, why don't you use API token, which is also a new feature that we just released last year to collect logs. So I will run through first log pool with a normal API key, and then next I will go through the API token. So to run the API, the easiest one is using curl. So if you do not have a curl available in your laptop, you are using Windows, you can go to this URL, redbeam.com/curl, or you just Google online curl, and then you can copy and paste this command into your into the screen. Okay, so let me copy and paste this first into your screen. So this will be the main format. On top of this, there are information that you need to complete. So first of all, you need to know what is your API key. So where to find your API key, because API key will be the one that you need to put in for authentication. Second is your zone ID. If you want to enable the retention flag, it will be per zone basis. So you need to define what is your zone ID. So to find that, you can go to, okay, let me walk through with you slowly. First is to get your zone ID. You go to the domain that you want to enable the retention. You can also go to your own demo domain. So for example, those that you created yourself. Yeah, for example, umbrella.digital or bird.greycloud.cf. And then you can go to the lower part in the API. So this is where you find your unique zone ID and your unique account ID. So again, depending on information that you are trying to get, for now, the API call requires zone ID. So you need to click this to copy. So my recommendation is you copy and paste the API command that I give to you, and then post it in the notepad so that you are able to modify it. Okay, so let me open my notepad. So this is your zone ID, right? And then, oh, hold on. This is a free plan, so I cannot get a log for a free plan. I need to get the log is only available for enterprise plan. So let's try this one. This is the zone ID. Okay, and then This is the command. So you need to copy and paste this one into here. Yeah, sometimes make sure that this is in the one line. If you want to go to another line, then you need to put the backslash. So all email, use your own email. All of you are administrators, so should be able to collect the logs and have all the permissions. So I am using my demo domain email account. API key. So API key is as good as your password. So be careful with this and do not ever send this even over email to our support or to whoever it is. So for API key, you can get it in my profile. API tokens, global API key. So this is where you can get your key. So you need to put in your password first. Okay, there might be a captcha challenge. Okay, complete the captcha challenge. Click view. So you copy this one. So what I'm doing is for the purpose of demo, but as a best practice, you should not share your API key to anyone else. So this command is to do a post of the retention flag for this domain based on this authentication. So for me, what I'm going to do is I am going to post this to my Linux subsystem. Okay. So if you have this, then you can copy and paste. Otherwise, you can use the online curl. So this will be the response. So you see that the flag is already true, success is true. Another example is how to get the flag if you want to know the flag. So this is the command that you can use. Let me copy and paste in the chat. So you can copy and paste and use this command with your own API key. So try it out. So basically, when I want to do that, I just need to delete this one and change from post to get. So get means read, post means write. So okay. Yeah. So when it is successful, you will see success is true. Let's try if let me try if I change a parameter and purposely make it fail. So this is what you will see: success false, errors, authentication error. So this is what you will see if the auth key that you use is not correct. So let's try another one. What if my zone is wrong? So let me delete, press enter. So it also say authentication error because the zone is invalid. So this is how you will see and how you should expect. Next, we almost at end of our time, but I would like to cover one more, which is using the API token. So this is also more interesting because API token, with the API keys, it is the key that is not changed, which means that once you get the API key and you never change it, then it will stay with you. But of course, best practice, if you know or if you think that your IP has been compromised, API key has been compromised, then you should change it. So just like what I'm doing now. Okay, and then I also want you to try using API token. So the format is still the same. The difference is API token allows you to provide this token to maybe someone else or provide this to with a certain roles only. So for example, this particular person with this token can only edit zone DNS. So you can, there is a template that you can just fill in. So they have an edit only at the DNS app, includes specific zone. So you can also limit whether you want this token bearer to only can work with, let's say, Brimstone domain and not other domain. You can also select if the IP address coming from a certain IP address. And you can create a TTL, means that how long the token will active. So after a certain time, then the token will be expired. So let's say this one, and then the end date, let's say I just want to allow 3 days. So 20 to 22. Continue to summary. So this is what the permission I give for this token bearer, create token. So once you get that, this will be your token identity. So the authorization bearer here is the password. So time-bound password. You should not share this to anyone else. And this token bearer can only do specific tasks. So if you want to verify, you can copy and paste this one to the curl as well. So I want you to try out with your own demo domain. And next, also need to take note that using the authorization bearer token, sometimes it does not work with all API calls. So for example, if you want to use that to get the retention, like earlier this one, it won't be successful, but you can use that to collect the logs. So there is an example in my in here on how you use the authorization bearer to collect Cloudflare logs. So let me copy and paste this one for yours to test. Since all of you are the administrator, what you can do is you can create the authorization bearer here based on the Grey Cloud API token, and then you can copy and paste this command. You should be able to see this response. So basically what this command does is collect the log for the zone with this zone ID. So this is the Grey Cloud zone ID. Logs received start from. So this will be the time frame. So the time frame is based on the UTC time. So UTC time zone. It's not your local time zone, yeah. So I collect based on 1 hour on 19th of January 2021. and then count 7. Count 7 means just take the first 7 logs. So you can also take a look, change this one. Fields. So what are the fields I want to take? So earlier Camilla shared about what are the available fields in the log. So in this example, I just specify this field, but if you want to play around, you can change to different types of fields as well. And this will be the result you get. All right, with this, then the takeaway for the logs is, by default, logs are not retained, so you need to enable the logs in order for the retention to start. And then only available with log push or log pull. For log push, log pull, the API endpoint starting with receive field to get what are the fields available. For log push, you can get send the log to this cloud storage, S3, Azure, Google, SumoLogic, IBM Cloud. On top of this, for beta version, we also allow to push the log into S3 compatible on-premise storage.
Yeah, and I will add here, just what we also support log push to Splunk, directly to Splunk with HTTP collector, and also Datadog as well. So it's really.
Oh yeah, this is new, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So with that, then I will end today's session. There is one question.
We have a couple of questions. Yeah, one of them is for edge log delivery. Do you want me to read it, or you have access to
it? Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about edge log delivery. Yeah.
Correct. So does it support syslog server? No, it does not support syslog server. It supports the same platform as what you have now, because syslog has a different log format. So only JSON text as long as the receiver supports that. Is it possible to collect some additional details on the request, such as post data? So post data means it's the body. Camilla, do we have that feature available?
Well, actually, it's only whatever we listed and specified in our developers for the logs. That's the that we're able to collect from this.
Correct. That is what I understand as well. So for the post data, it is available for the firewall events, yeah, if not mistaken. So you need to, there is a feature to enable in order to match the or to get the information for the post data, which is encrypted. Our WAF team actually is building a solution on this, and we will give you the update in either in the newsletter or the frequent tech update, because currently it's still in beta. So previously you will be able to see that in the firewall events, but then they pull it out considering there are private information there. So now they are working on another solution to ensure that the data is encrypted and only the customer is able to access that. They are protecting it using the SSL certificate. So yeah, it is upcoming, but yeah, there will be a solution to get the post data, and especially for the WAF.
Yeah, there was one more question in the chat. Is there a command to list all the logs? Well, the logs that available is that the URL I just sent it to you, developers.cloudflare.com/log/log fields. So this is where you have an API call, how you can list all of the logs, because in pool, API log pool, you would need to specify all the logs if you want to see them in the your log request. Yeah. If you don't specify some of them, you won't see it. So that's why you need to explicitly list all of the logs in your API call.
Yep. So to list all the logs, I think let's go to the log field and take a look. So you will need to list the logs. List of fields is also available directly from the API. So if you list, let's say, the log and you include all the fields here, so it will include all the fields when you get the information from the JSON text. But of course, this will be really a lot. So list of fields. Some example of doing requesting logs, right? So parameters, fields, this is where you collect what are the fields you want to be captured, to be sent to you. So you need to list all the logs. And then the format is the time and then the zone ID. So this is where you will get all the logs based on a certain time, and then if the fields, you put in all the fields, then it will include all the fields. And then there is another question. When I try to get the logs, is to show this error called bad illegal format or missing URL. Yeah, we need to get to know what is the API call that you try to collect.
Also, just wanted to mention to everyone is that we also have a real-time logs available. So when you use something like log push API, you have a delay about like 3 to 5 minutes before we gather all the logs from all 200 data centers and push it directly to you. But there is an option how to do a live stream of the logs real time, which means that every time one of our data centers got hit with request, it automatically actually sent to you in real time. So this option is running in beta. If you have any customers who is interested in live stream or real-time logs, they can get back to us and we're happy to share with you that API call.
Yeah. Also, Camila, I want to confirm. So you mentioned we have different types of logs, right? From HTTP events, Spectrum events, and firewall events. So for Spectrum and firewall events, it's only available using log push. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. It's only via log push. The reason is that log pull API at some point might be no longer used. So now our all major focus is on log push and log stream, which is going to be a real-time delivery.
Oh, yes, correct. Yeah. So if you want to see Spectrum events and firewall events, you need to configure a log push service to a cloud storage. So, but for today's demo, we use a log pull for HTTP requests. Okay, so authorization error for yeah, okay. HTTP, this one, don't log receive, count.
I guess just not to keeping others waiting, guys. I guess we all finished with the
Yeah,
content unless you have any questions, and we can debug it either via email or now if you tell us.
correct.
But yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, just to end this session. So if you have 1 minute, we would really appreciate if you can fill in the survey to help us improve in our coming sessions. And so today we conclude the security portion of our training. Tomorrow we will move on to the performance section of our training. Okay, so let me take a look at this request. Authorization bearer. The format itself is already correct. So let me just try to, okay. Yeah, so to Jiwan Dono, let me follow up with you on through the email on this request, because I have another appointment after this, so I need to drop off, but I will follow up tonight.
Yep. Thanks
So
everyone.
I think, thank you everyone. Thank you, Camila. So I will follow up on the recording tomorrow and for the recording tonight, and have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.